Good afternoon, everybody. Mary Hunt here at the Water Office. Buenos tardes, bienvenidos. Welcome to all of you, and especially those of you for whom it is your first Water Talk. May I invite you, other than Ofelia, to silence mute your little box so that you don't interfere with our efforts here to be able to hear every word of what I think will be a very important conversation. I can't tell you how delighted I am on Wednesday, September the 14th, 2022, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast to welcome all of you to this session. I am thrilled to see the face of Ofelia Ortega.
Yes.
La cara. Bueno, bienvenida, mi querida. Wonderful. So, all the deities to whom we have prayed for internet access have favored us.
Clara,
Ya está bien. Ya está bien.
She's sick. No, she's sick, very sick with dengue, a virus.
¿Quién es?
It's very dengue
Clarita.
virus.
Sí, pero ¿quién?
And then she can participate. And she sent greetings to all of you. Yes.
Wow. Well, we send our prayers, please, and our very best wishes. So again, I begin Mary Hunt at Water. I'm here in the Water Office, the Women's Alliance for Theology, Ethics, and Ritual in Silver Spring, Maryland, in the United States, with the other co-director, Diane New, who can favor us with a wave. That's royal of you, Diane. And also in the office today, we have JT Rustad, who is working with us and has been doing water service for the last year, and JT will be leaving us for full-time employment, as was the plan, but I want to thank them for their work with us this year, really first rate. And I also want to welcome in a very special way, I don't know where they are at the moment, but our longtime colleague, Clara Francie Cromer, who is here in the office working with a brand new colleague today, Pamela Miller. Both are Wesley Seminary students. That is to say, Clara Francie is a graduate and will be going back for her doctorate in ministry next year. But Pamela will be doing her project in mission and ministry here at Water. And today is her very first day in the office. So please join me in extending a very warm Water welcome to Pamela Miller. Are they around, Diane? I don't know where.
They are. They just got the link. They're just trying to get on.
Right.
So they should be on momentarily.
Here they come. And Clara Francie works for the federal government in IT, so I have every confidence that they'll make it. This is a very special occasion for us to celebrate the publication of this marvelous book in English of the work of our dear friend and colleague, Ofelia Ortega. So I just begin with this image for you to take a moment of silence to reflect with great gratitude on the work of Ofelia and all the work that went into making this volume possible. So now we have Cuban feminist theology, visions, and praxis available to us in the English language. We will be using English today for our language, and I hope that other people will have an opportunity to watch this in other parts of the world who can't be here today. I really wish that time differences were not as grand as they are, particularly thinking of our dear colleagues in Asia and Australia and New Zealand, for whom it's the middle of the night. I also want to offer a special welcome to those of you, and maybe you could wave your hands, who were part of the Doctorate in Ministry program that Shannon Clarkson and Letty Russell set up. Wave your hands, those of you who are part of that. Oh, it's wonderful to see you. And thank you for being here, not only with your colleague, Ofelia, but with all of us. And a special thanks to those who set up that program, and obviously of blessed memory, Letty Russell, and with us today to speak briefly, Shannon Clarkson. We will take notes for this session, so all you have to do is relax and eat your lunch or whatever you'd like to do during this time and listen. We'll get the notes and the video up on our site in the not too distant future, and I hope that you will be able to share this with other friends. it's really such an opportunity for us. So again, I ask you just one thing, which is to cut down your own sound, make sure that you're silent, and then when it's time for conversation, you'll be back at play again. But at the moment, please do that. But enjoy your lunch or whatever you're doing, and just celebrate with us this marvelous experience. I begin with a land acknowledgement, hoping that you too will think about the indigenous persons on whose land you sit today. We at Water are on the indigenous land in Silver Spring, Maryland, of the traditional and contemporary Piscataway and Anacostan people. We acknowledge the trauma that is deeply embedded in the foundation of this country, and we commit to eradicating that injustice as we sit on land we do not own. Water's work brings feminist and womanist spiritual values to efforts at social change. Earlier this year, we heard from Professor Lisa Allen, who spoke about womanist liturgy. And we also heard from Professor Jennifer Harvey, who spoke about raising white kids, her book about bringing up children in a racially unjust America. And so this work today with Cuba, with Ofelia, with an international connection, reminds us again and again of the ways in which all of us in womanist and feminist theology are trying to make social change, not simply trying to do theological work for its own sake, but we do it for the sake of social change. So we turn now to a very important publication of the work of Ofelia Ortega, who is with us. Ofelia, just give a wave for those who might not recognize you immediately. She is a scholar, a pastor, international and national activist, a political figure, and much, much more. And mostly she's a friend for many of us. She brings biblically based insights in accessibly written essays to a very broad audience. And we today are part of that audience with deep gratitude. And Ofelia, I would just say by way of introduction that there are people here who are from Ireland, from Canada, from India. My two dear colleagues, I mentioned you, Pamela, and new colleague Pamela and longtime colleague Claire Francie, who are in the office today working through the Wesley program. So there are lots of people on here, folks from Ecuador, from California, from many parts of the U.S. as well. I really, Joyce Hill is with us, Ofelia. So there's just a richness of people gathered to be with you and to share this marvelous experience of hearing you talk about your book. Our format is very simple. I'm going to invite Shannon Clarkson to describe the International Feminist Doctorate in Ministry program for those who don't know about it at San Francisco Theological Seminary, for which this book was Ophelia's dissertation or final project. And then Cherie White, a longtime friend and collaborator with Ofelia, will describe the content and the organization of the volume, of which she was a welcome and incredibly efficient editor. And I'll share a few words from the foreword, which I was privileged to contribute. And then we'll hear from you, Ofelia, in your own words about your work. And we'll follow all this with discussion. Now, I'd like to finish what I've just described by 2 o'clock so that we can end as we always do at the top of the hour. Those who would like to stay on and continue in conversation are more than welcome. We hope you will stay on, continue conversation. Feel free to get up and get your lunch, whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. But we will continue conversation for those who wish, but the official ending time will be 2 o'clock. So I am delighted again to say that the warm welcome of Water extends all over the world today for those who are on this Zoom, and we look forward to your being full participants at the time of discussion. Let me begin then with you, Shannon, dear. Shannon Clarkson, an educator, ordained United Church of Christ minister, an activist, and a scholar. She collaborated with her life partner, the renowned feminist theologian Letty Russell, on many projects, including the International Feminist DMIN program at San Francisco Theological Seminary. Shannon, please tell us something about the wonderful program that you and Letty put together and how it has empowered so many women all over the world to advance in their careers.
Sure. We started the program in 1993, and it sort of ended in 2007 when she died, although people continue to write their deep dissertation projects and graduate. So it kind of continues little by little, fizzles out. The program was because there were a lot of DMIN programs, but there weren't so many for women who are not in the US. And so we focused on finding scholarships and things to fund international women to participate in a doctorate of ministry program. And some of those women are on, I think 6 or 7 are on here today. And because we were focusing on international people, the time slots, we met in January for 2 weeks, and then the following January for 2 weeks. And then in the summer, they had to spend, the student participants had to spend 6 weeks at San Francisco Theological Seminary in San Anselmo, California, where they would start to write their thesis or get it organized. And then as they wrote, they would turn it in and then they would graduate. And so we had a lot of fun for those years. Actually, some people are still trying to finish, so it isn't over yet, I guess, I would say. The design was to make it practical and to make it useful for women in the work that they were already doing. And we tried, because we were seeking a number of international women, we tried to find scholarship money so that nobody had to pay very much or at all. And we were helped by the World Council of Churches and other international organizations to help find scholarships for the people in the program. The US women had to find their own, I'm sorry to say. And let's see, the program met for 2 weeks in January in Geneva, Switzerland, which was the home of the World Council of Churches, and they were responsible for some of our funding. So, and also they had international connections. So we thought, since it was a kind of a global program, it would be important to meet in a global context. And then another 2 weeks, we met in a country of the South, the global South. We met in Cuba, we met in Japan, Korea, a variety of different countries. People on the program could probably say ones that I'm forgetting, but so as well as then they had to have 6 weeks in seminary at San Francisco to get started on their dissertation. A number for their dissertations, the books have published books out of those dissertations. I think maybe 7. I kept count for a while. And since there are so many people from the program on this program, some of them might want to say something in the discussion part. We met in 2 different countries of the South. The program went 2 weeks in one January and then 2 weeks the following January. And then 6 weeks in San Francisco at the seminary. And so we tried to alternate places where we went so that people would be exposed to, and when we were in, say, Kenya or Ghana or somewhere, women in theological education in those areas were invited to come and sit in on the program, so that it kind of broadened the program for us and for them. Let's see, we tried to find scholarships for all of the women who were not from the US who participated in the program. So that was an important feature of the program. And trying to make this short.
We probably need a whole program on that, actually, Shannon.
Yeah, I think since there's so many people from the program on this program, maybe people could just say 1 sentence or 2 sentences about their thought about the program. How would that be? So we have real.
Let's do that. Let's lead the discussion with that. How's that?
Okay, sure, good.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. I can feel the spirit of Letty Russell, and that feels wonderful. I also want to say that one of our other participants, Marta Lidia Palma, is with us, and she figures in this story as well. So a special welcome to her. Keep your eyes on the chat. People are putting interesting things in. Someone from Japan is with us. It's only 2 a.m. in Japan. And also Oliva Espin tells us that she's from Cuba and living in California. So we're glad to have her with us, of course. Let me turn to Cherie White then, a retired United Methodist minister. Thanks, Shannon. That gets us started. It gives me another program idea. But let's move to Cherie, a retired United Methodist mission personnel, served in Chile and Mexico, teaching at the Methodist Seminary in Mexico City for 23 years. She lived in Cuba during her childhood, where her late father, David White, was professor at the seminary where Ofelia Ortega is resident. Her father was a well-known and beloved professor there, and the book, you'll notice, is dedicated to his memory as well as to the memory of Letty Russell. So that's a really nice connection. So she has only known Ofelia Ortega since she was 12, so I guess she has a few things to say. Go ahead. As a graduate of the program, Cherie, we're delighted to have you, and also to know that you were the thesis advisor for Ofelia for this marvelous project. What a great bilingual editor extraordinaire you are, and a tireless colleague in justice struggles. So please give us your sense of the structure and content of this volume to get us going.
Okay, thank you, Mary, and bienvenidas y qué gusto ver a todas. It's wonderful to see everyone, to be present for this wonderful book that I'm delighted that a Latin American feminist voice is being heard, because so many write and work hard but are not published in English. I must mention at the beginning that many of the articles that are present in Ofelia's thesis were in Spanish, so I'm very grateful for the help of Joyce Hill and Sylvia Shirk. I don't know if Sylvia was able to connect. She's also a graduate of our program. They helped me with the translating, and I did the rest, which is quite a bit. So the book, as has been mentioned, is basically Ofelia's DMin dissertation for San Francisco Theological Seminary. And she turned it in 2018, and thus that allowed her to graduate in 2019. This published book, I've got mine behind here too, and Mary's going to be promoting it, therefore also has new material besides the entire contents of the dissertation. And this is due to the fact that this book just came out in February of this year, 2022. The additions to the original dissertation are basically a couple of things. One is an absolute right-on forward by Mary, which is absolutely beautiful. And number two, because many important Cuban issues related to how the country and the Evangelical Theological Seminary in Matanzas responded to the pandemic, Ofelia was asked to write an afterword to include whatever has happened in Cuba between 2018, when she finished the dissertation, and 2022, when the book actually was published. I would say that some of that extra material or information in this final edition includes US relationships, including Obama and Trump, the status of patriarchy in Cuba now, the family code, etc. Looking at what you see on the screen right now, you will see that the book has 5 parts, which reflect the 5 different subject matters. Part 1 is the religious life in the historical and social context of Cuba. Part 2 is the church in pastoral ministry from a global and Cuban perspective. Part 3 is women in theology with a focus on Cuba and the Caribbean. Part 4 is theological education and mission, 2 points, challenges and a search for new models. And part 5 is international, social, political, ecological, and ethical themes. So that is the contents of the book, so that you can get a good taste. The foreword is by Mary Hunt. And the way the thesis was put together was that on the basis of these 5 things, which Ofelia considered important throughout her life in ministry, and therefore were things that she had already written a slew of articles and essays and workshops, what happened to put the dissertation together was to include her published and unpublished articles over a 40-year period of ministry or more that were relevant for these 5 themes. And therefore, these reflect her career as a seminary professor, theological consultant for the World Council of Churches, and above all, as an ordained Presbyterian minister. I would like to add to this that in these articles, you are going to see Ophelia's main interests, which intersect all of her articles. And I have 6. There are probably more. And of course, in each one of these 6, there are several sub-themes. So Ophelia's passion is theology, and very specifically, feminist, liberation, Latin American theology. Secondly, because she has been a seminary professor, theological education has been very important for her, and you will see that on the list of articles. And so her passions in feminist, the liberation, and Latin American theology, you will find are evident in her teaching at the Seminario Evangélico de Teología in Matanzas, Cuba, which is the Evangelical Theological Seminary, and her teaching at the Ecumenical Institute at Basel, Switzerland, which belongs to the World Council of Churches. And these articles also reflect a multitude of conferences and workshops at international, Cuban, national, and her local church levels. A third interest for Ofelia has always been the ecumenical movement, ecumenicity. Her ecumenical and interreligious outreach is evident throughout the book. The fourth of her interests, which intersect in all of her articles, is biblical studies, which are the basis for her theology and ministry. And I would just like to say, be sure and read chapter 15, the presence of tenderness in the First Testament, a topic we don't associate with the Hebrew Bible all the time. Her fifth interest is obviously ministry. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in theological education or in other forms of ministry. So the lofty academic aspects of her articles all lead to ministry in the local church. Thus, her feet are firmly grounded where God's people are, especially in, number 6, Cuba. This is her homeland, and her experience and vivencia living in Cuba reflects the history and cultural aspects, both secular and religious, are reflected in all of these articles. And the history and cultural aspects in turn affirm her grounding as a Latin American, Cuban-born woman who is a feminist, liberation, theologian, biblical scholar, and Protestant minister. Viva Ofelia. Okay, I hand it back.
Bueno, bien hecho. Well done. I would like to simply conclude these preliminary remarks before we get to the main attraction by quoting from the foreword of this book, which I had the privilege of writing, and sometime I'll tell you later about how we all got together and studied and how this whole process came about. But let me just quote from the foreword by way of introduction of our friend Ofelia Ortega. I quote her, "I am a woman who dreams and who struggles." So wrote the Reverend Dr. Ofelia Miriam Ortega Suarez in Cuban Feminist Theology. I am a woman who dreams and who struggles. And I say what dreams they are and what struggles. This English language publication of her work is a rare and welcome volume. It fills in many theological blanks and opens new horizons for Latin American and Caribbean feminist work in religion. Ofelia weaves her life story throughout the collection. She never reduces theology to the private realm, but acknowledges that life experience is a major shaping force in imagining and constructing theology and ethics. As a young girl in a poor family in Cardenas, she felt the sting of sexism early. Her value as a female, no matter how able she was nor how hard she worked, was always seen as less than that of males. Yet she dreamed it could be different, and so she made it different for herself and for many others. That legacy unfolds between these covers with academic rigor and social justice intent, plus a twist of poetry. Ofelia went on to work at Bosse at the Conference Center, later at the World Council of Churches and the Program on Theological Education, and eventually to serve as one of the presidents of the World Council of Churches. As we might mention importantly today, she was the first and so far only woman rector of the seminary in Matanzas. From early on, she was active in the World Student Christian Federation, which is a global incubator for future church leaders. She became the first woman to be ordained in the Presbyterian Reformed Church in Cuba. If she had been a man, the road would have been strewn with rose petals. As a woman, her path was rocky and uncertain. That she accomplished it all is notable, but that she has the bandwidth to write about it, as well as to continue to theologize decades later, is no small feat. I conclude the impact of Ofelia's work is that whole swaths of Cuban and Latin American Caribbean theological content previously passed over without most scholars recognizing or realizing it was missing, these things are now visible. Discovering it, learning from it will help other women and marginalized people value and contribute their own unique ways of asking and answering questions of ultimate meaning and value. This theology is the fruit of Ofelia Ortega's vocation. That which she could do, that no one else can do. And if she did not do it, it would not get done in this world. Cuban feminist theology exists and endures thanks to her. It is my honor and my delight to present my friend, my sister, my colleague, Ofelia Ortega, to a water audience. Ofelia, welcome. Bienvenida.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, sisters from all over the world. I really enjoy this conversation very much. And commenting on the experience of the process that led us to the writing and production of the book, Cuban Feminist Theology, Vision and Praxis, entails the appreciation of the participation of women theologians and dreamers with a faithful identity to feminist theology, who help us to walk difficult paths but full of opportunity and shared love. I remember when I was 19 years old, it was my first interview to take by the church, take the decision if I could come to the seminary. I remember this interview. Two young men were before my interview. And then one of the pastors in the interview asked me, Ofelia, what happened if you marry in the seminary? And then I answered him, well, did you ask the same question to the other men before they passed the exam? It was a phrase that they mentioned, and of course I don't have the translation. They said, esta gallina canta bien en su gallinero. Tradúcelo, Cherie. Esta gallina canta bien en su gallinero. Tradúcelo, Cherie.
See, well, this gal sings well in her own chicken coop. Or this chick sings well in her own chicken coop.
Exactly. Well, this means since 19 years old, I was really struggling all the time for the freedom of women at all levels, including the theological seminary in Matanzas and in the World Council of Churches and in different ways. But the journey began, dear sisters, in 1995, when inspired by theologians Letty M. Russell and Shannon Clarkson, I enrolled in the doctoral ministry course at San Francisco Theological Seminary, California, United States of America. I was unable to finish the DMin dissertation due to my other multiple occupations as a professor of the Evangelical Seminary in Matanzas and pastor of the Presbyterian Reformed Church in Cuba. Then I was unable to finish the dissertation. But what happened is, surprisingly, Dr. Mary Hunt appeared in our path in 2017, who, supported by Shannon Clarkson and the executive of San Francisco Theological Seminary, decided to provide me with the impetus to finish that task in the company of two other theologians from Chile and Nicaragua, who also wished to finish their dissertation work. Always I have been like that, not to do things alone by myself. I said, this woman from Nicaragua and this woman from Chile needs to finish what they began to in 1995. It means to accompany others. It has been part of my theology all the time. Then the three of us met for 2 weeks of intensive study with Mary Hunt in a classroom at the Evangelical Theological Seminary in Matanzas, Cuba. But I want to tell you that our laughter, singing, and joy permeated the atmosphere. Professors and students at the seminary, wondering what kind of theology we were studying that inspired so much joy. Our laughter, our singing, it was here all over the seminary. And of course, the people were even some of the students say, what happened over there? What kind of theology they are discussing that they are so happy? This is our theology too. The three of us met for 2 weeks and it was wonderful. The three of us finished our dissertations with the help of formidable tutors. I had the company and help of Dr. Cherie, also graduate of San Francisco Theological Seminary. I owes the book that we presented today with 5 sections that already our dear tutor, Cherie presented so well. I'm not going to deal with that. But whatever aspects of the life and work of women in Cuba and the Caribbean are included in the book. And of course, the necessary changes to be made in the pastoral practice of the churches to achieve a more participatory leadership, not dominating for a patriarchal culture at all. In addition, the book includes a decolonizing reflection on mission and theological education and practical orientation for prophetic action in society. The conclusion presents a brief summary for my ministerial trajectory, where using the words of Letty M. Russell, I can affirm that it has been a journey toward liberty, a journey with others, for others, and towards God's future. Under the guidance of the tutor, Cherie, and afterward, at the end of the book, offers a current panorama of Cuban society and churches from 2018 to 2021. However, I want to tell you that the best part of this story that the graduation celebrated in 2019 could not take place in the United States of America because it was not possible for me to get a visa at the American Embassy in Havana with my Cuban passport to attend the graduation ceremony. I cannot do it. They say no. So we invited the rector and the deans, 2 women, on the San Francisco Theological Seminary to come to Cuba for the celebration of the graduation ceremony. They accepted the proposal, and the graduation became a big celebration organized by North American and Cuban women, North American women and Cuban women. We also held off a meeting on feminist theology inspired by the work and life of Letty Russell, with the participation of 30 Cuban and 15 American women, North American women. I currently, what I'm doing now, I currently direct the Christian Institute of Gender Studies in Cuba. I have participation during the last 2 years in the commission of drafting the Cuban Family Code, which will be presented in a referendum to be voted by all the Cuban people next September 25. We have worked hard on the formulation of the content of the code. I have been the only Christian theologian in the commission. As a formative task for the Cuban churches, the Gender Institute worked hard on the publication of 2 biblical theological booklets entitled Families of Love and Inclusion and Values of the Reign of God. These booklets have been widely distributed, not only in the churches, but also at the governmental commission that prepared the code for Cuban families. As Mary Hunt wrote in the foreword of the book, Yes, as she mentioned, I am a woman who dreams and still fights. At 87 years old, for the inclusive and hospitable society of church, as Letty M. Russell would say. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We salute you, we applaud you, we embrace you, we love you, and we appreciate your comments and your presence with us today. Wow. Let me open the floor for conversation. There are many friends and colleagues here who I know have questions and comments. If you would like to make a comment or raise a question, please use the reaction button on the bottom of your screen where it says reactions. You can see along the bottom mute and stop video and so forth. But raise your hand. Use the raise your hand function. As I have just shown you, I've raised my hand. And then, of course, when you finish, you lower your hand. And that way we will be able to hear from a number of people and we'll keep the conversation flowing. Ofelia, this is a very special occasion for us. And we appreciate so much the help of your technicians and friends in Cuba who made it possible for you to be with us today. So please thank them for us. I have 2 people who are going to start. One is Ellen Acton and the other is Elizabeth Soto. So Ellen first and then Elizabeth, and feel free to introduce yourself. Please be brief because we've got lots of people who want to get in the conversation. So Ellen, then Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm in Seattle, Washington. I heard Ophelia's voice on the tapes from the Reimagining Conference, which was back in early 90s, late 80s. And then I met Ofelia in the D-Min program at San Francisco Seminary. And what an honor that was. And what a blessing to see you today, dear. Looking so well. And just, you've been in my prayers all this time and continue to be. I look forward to reading the book. It sounds so exciting. Marta Palma, I see was also on our time here, and she was in our group, and Nellie Ritchie from Argentina, others that came to join us. It was just a wonderful experience in my life, very much shaped the rest of my ministry career. And Ofelia was a big part of that. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Happy to have you with us. Notice in the chat that there is a link to this promotional flyer for the book from Lexington Books, Fortress Academic Press, a 30% discount offer, Cuban Feminist Theology, Visions, and Praxis. So please go in the chat. If you didn't receive that, you should have gotten it when you registered, and take advantage of that 30% discount to get the book. There are various formats for accessing it, but we would like to get the book out, especially to your libraries. The price is very high, but libraries can pay it, and let's hope that they will get it for their students, and hopefully that will aid the process of moving the book into paperback so that we can have even more access to it. Okay, Elizabeth Soto would be next, and then Shannon Clarkson.
Mi querida hermana del corazón cubana, saludos. Ofelia, I met you in 1995 in the Medellin encounter. And then again in 2001 in Matanza with Letty and Shannon with my cohort. Saludos a Denise, saludos a Diane. They were part of my cohort in the given time. I just wanted to say that in 2021, we used portions of her book to teach a cross-cultural Cuban theology. And she gave us permission to use portion because it was not published yet. And my students loved it. Plus she did a Zoom presentation like this to my students. So I'm glad to see you alive, and I want to recommend the book. It is a wonderful resource for our new development theologian feminist young people. Muchas gracias, te amamos, Ofelia.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Shannon, you're next. Unmute, please. Shannon, you need to unmute. There we go.
You're saying that about that meeting in Florida where you were there, and I said, would you stay another week and work with some of the DMin students? I'd forgotten about that, but it really paid off, and it just shows that things happen that you don't expect, and you have to just jump and take advantage of them, because look what a difference it made.
Yes, it made a great difference. Y ahora Marta Lidia Palma, one of the other two.
Ay, Dios mío, señor.
Muchas gracias.
Bueno, and also, if Deborah Garcia is with us, she was the third member of this cohort, and Deborah is was the president of the Nicaraguan the Baptist Seminary in Nicaragua. I don't know that she's with us today, but if you want to know who was laughing, it was Marta Lidia Palma, it was Deborah Garcia, Ofelia, and myself. So go ahead, Marta Lidia, welcome. Dr. Palma.
Lidia, Martica querida.
Sí. ¿Es mi turno? Okay. I am very happy to see Ofelia and all the friends there. This really make me remember so many good moments, good stories. I would like to thank Ofelia for all what she have done for us, for Latin America, for the world. I want to add to the comment that were done at the beginning of this conversation. I would like to add the fact that Ofelia is a witness and a prophet. A witness of this time and some past time. I know that it was not always easy to be a prophet in Cuba, especially in the first year of the revolution, where Christianity was not so welcome. But then the situation changed, and Ofelia always kept this role of being a prophet. It was not easy for a woman, a pastor, for all the political situation, but she always tried to give witness of her faith and also of the ecumenical movement in Cuba. As a prophet, she was always announcing something new, a new world, a new kingdom of God. So this is something that I always saw in Ofelia. Is one dimension was to be aware of the problem, but at the same time to announce that it was possible to have something better, a better world. And in my view, her theology is characterized by many things that some of you have said already. But the two elements that for me are very important in Ofelia is tenderness and friendship. I think that she not always write about this, but she live out this attitude of openness to other and friendship, being a friend in all circumstances. So I think this is something very important for this moment that we are living. Today, there is a lot of fragmentation, there is a lot of confrontation, there is a lot of division. The only way to overcome that is having an attitude of going to the other, practicing friendship and practicing tenderness beyond our differences. So, Ofelia, we really are very happy to be your friend. And your book, in your book, I see that you encapsulated all what you are and all what you have done. And this is a big gift for the younger generations. And we hope that at least in Latin America, we will see new times. We will go through the darkness that we are in this moment, but we will see the sun someday. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you soon in Chile or in Cuba. And many of you are most welcome to come to Chile. Thank you.
Bueno, mil gracias, Lidia.
Sí, ¿puedo
Ofelia,
decir algo?
¿quieres decir algo?
Sí, puedo decir algo. Sí. ¿Ya marcaste ahí? Sí. The dissertation of Marta Palma is wonderful. It's about the dialogue with other religions. And this is so important today. I want to mention that because it's great. It was a great effort for her. The dialogue with other religions in our world today. How to get more peace, more love in the middle of different religions. And the situation in Nicaragua of Deborah Garcia was a wonderful dissertation too, because it was about the economic situation in Latin America and how the churches are helping to survive in the middle of all difficulties. These three women established in their work, and we want to have the celebration of the three dissertations in Chile, maybe, but why not?
Yes, please.
And to have a great feast there, and we invite many people to go there to Chile to see if we could have a great celebration there of the three dissertations. And it has been a miracle of love, the three dissertations. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And the three dissertations are very distinguished and very different from one another, and yet the teamwork that helped also to prepare those dissertations and to bring them to fruition was really very much in the spirit of the DMIN program. So it's a wonderful reminder to us. I only wish that Deborah Garcia were with us today. I can only imagine her situation in Nicaragua at the moment, and I pray for her because it must be very difficult with so many, more than 1,200 NGOs closed by the government. Let me turn now to, with thanks to Marta Lidia, I turn now to Sheila Curran in Dublin and then to Cherie White. Go ahead, Sheila.
Thanks, Mary. Yo just quisiera decir a Ofelia mil gracias por tu trabajo, por tu testimonio. I just wanted to say to Ofelia to thank her for her testimony and witness. What I really think is really important, Ofelia, as somebody that worked in Peru in Latin America, among all of the women theologians there from all different entries in particularly in the Christian world, how difficult it is to get your work published in English, and the contribution that the church in Latin America has made to the global theological world and is so important, but the struggle, particularly for women theologians, to get their work published in English. And I just commend the work it must have taken for you to get your work out there in English. And I really do hope it is read far and wide in the Anglo-Saxon tongue that dominates theological work in the Western world, particularly, or in the more academic world, it's more German or French, but Spanish wouldn't be seen as the theological language that it should be. But anyway, just to make that plea for anybody that can and do promote the translation of women writers from Latin America who write from their core experience and their witness and testimony at a time that is so needed in the global world, their voices of both struggle and liberation, because they witness to that liberating God in its multifaceted dimensions throughout the Latin American continent. So thank you. It's a pleasure to listen to you. And as someone that's big into both interfaith dialogue, I know some of your work from the World Council of Churches, and thank you for that contribution also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just to mention that Sheila Curran is with the Sisters of Mercy in Ireland, where she works particularly with immigrants. Moving on to Cherie White, and then to Oliva Espin. You'll be next.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I wanted to take advantage of this moment to add something to the promotion of Ophelia's writings. It's women throughout Latin America are forever publishing individual essays or sharing conferences. But Ofelia, aside from Elsa Tamés and Ivone Guevara, are the few that have been able to collect their essays or works together in published material. Judy Ress from Chile mentioned to me once, she was one of the readers of the thesis, said that it would be good to have Ofelia's thesis in Spanish, because there is not one book that collects her main articles. So I wanted to mention that before this book that we're promoting today came out in English, we were able to help Ofelia get a collection of her essays, best essays done in Spanish. This book is not the thesis. It does not have the chapter introductions, the general introduction and conclusion that the thesis has, but it does have 15 of the 19 articles or chapters that are in the English edition, which we are promoting today. Mary has this book. And so for those of you who are in Latin America and want an Ofelia resource with more of her articles and an occasional one you might have come across, this is a good book to have, and it was published in Mexico by CUPSA, La Casa Unida de Publicaciones. So if anybody's interested in that information, Mary or I can get it to you. Thank you.
If you want to put it in the chat now, Cherie, you can as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's yes, a very important book, and to have all of that in Spanish is, of course, critically important. Oliva Espin, you're next. Welcome.
Hola, Ofelia, mucho gusto. Yo soy cubana, pero vivo en Estados Unidos. Me encanta tener este libro. I'm delighted. I'm gonna read it very carefully. And I'm a member of a lay group of people who read theology. So of course, I'm going to recommend it for a reading for next month. I hope they take it. So congratulations, and I'm delighted that this exists, and thankful to Water for making this known, because otherwise I would not have known about it. So thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Ofelia. Thank you, Oliva.
Many things. It's wonderful to have the Cuban women, because I know the group. I know your group. Then she really wants to study the book and all this. please send to me your email or WhatsApp. Let us have communication with them, because I think that we need for our prophetic witness in Cuba, the help and support of the Cuban that live in the United States. You know that. We need this support. The prophetic and witness that you are doing for us is excellent. Then thank you very much for your comment that really enrich my life. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm not, the other people in my group are not Cuban because I live in California. So they're all Americans. They will learn something that they wouldn't have learned otherwise. So thank you for that. And yes, I'll try to communicate with you directly and do it en español. Okay.
Yeah, and we're not called the Women's Alliance for Theology, Ethics, and Ritual for nothing. I'll make sure that you're in contact.
Okay.
Diane New, you're next.
I am sitting here with just chills and gratitude. What a proud day this is, just to see all of you on the screen, all of the work that you've done in Latin America, Ofelia in Cuba. This is such a proud moment when we were fearful that the networks wouldn't connect us. Here, some power is beyond us, that all of the internets have worked, and that all of the Latin American wisdom and hospitality and grace and brilliance is in front of us and has been shared with us. And I want to say not only a special thanks to you, Ofelia, and to you, Marta, and to Deborah, and to Shannon and to Cherie, but also to you, Mary Hunt, who has directed our Women Crossing Worlds program and our Latin American connections for almost, well, beyond 40 years. Water's 40th anniversary is coming up in April, to make some of this possible. It is amazing. Thank you, all of the women of Latin America and all of us who are supportive together in this feminist community worldwide.
Thanks, Diane. I'm going to give the last word to Joyce Hill, who I have to say on a personal note, I have to say that Joyce Hill is probably the single greatest reason why I ever stepped a foot in Latin America. She was one of the Methodist funders of the Frontier Internship Program. And one day she said to me, you really should think about going to Brazil too. So Joyce Hill has enriched my life in ways that I can't overestimate. And poignantly, we were together when the sisters were killed in El Salvador. That was one of our lasting memories, Joyce, that we were together in Buenos Aires that day. And I always, every December 4th, I think of you in a very special way, because sharing that with you as a longtime mission worker and someone who had great experience and made a huge difference in many countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. So having you here today is a very special honor for us. But you'll have the last word. And then I'm going to close the program formally, and then we'll continue in conversation. I noticed some people are just joining us because I think there's a time issue, but maybe they thought it was starting now. Go ahead, Joyce Hill.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say that when I was still living in Cuba as a missionary, one of the young women that I met at the seminary was breaking barriers that the men could not understand when Ofelia Ortega said, "I am here to study theology." And she did. And she has made a difference in the lives of women in Cuba and around the world for the influence she has had, with the integrity that she has worked, with the justice that she has promoted, all with a strong theological and biblical basis. To see her as a young student beginning, and years later to be with her when she was president of that same seminary, was one of the most thrilling experiences of my life. But one that I really cherish is the time we traveled together in an ecumenical group to Chiapas to meet with the women and the people of the Zapatista movement.
Yes,
trying to
yes.
work through roadblocks with the passports, in which we would put hers in the middle of everything else, so they really couldn't find out where she was from. To me, Ofelia is one of the leading women that has influenced me. And it was with great humility when Cherie asked me to be one of the translators that I finally said yes, praying that I would do justice to the words of this prophet, this theologian, this remarkable woman and friend of mine, Ofelia Ortega. Thank you. Gracias, Ofelia.
Joyce, Joyce, many thanks for all the work that you did for the translation into English. God bless you. And I remember the trip to Chiapas. You see, they cannot see my Cuban passport. Then I need to put my Cuban passport inside of my legs in a way that in this trip to Chiapas, they could not see my passport. But we passed thanks to you and thanks to many other people. So many adventures of love that we did together. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, everybody. It is my duty now to close our meeting officially because we covenant for 1 hour and we like to respect each one's time. I close it not only on the heels of these wonderful words from Joyce Hill, but with deep gratitude on behalf of all of us to Ofelia Ortega and to all of you for joining us for this session. Once again, I repeat, Cuban Feminist Theology, Visions and Praxis. The information on how to order the book is in the chat. Those who can stay around, please do. We're going to continue this conversation after the 2 o'clock hour. The audio recording of this session will be on our website, www.waterwomensalliance.org, in the next week or so, along with notes that we will take about the session. And I'd like to simply conclude with mentioning a couple of upcoming water sessions. One will be a water liturgy with Diane New and Water Friends on Tuesday, September 20th at 7:30 p.m. Return thanks to Hildegard of Bingen. So we'll be looking at Hildegard of Bingen, that 12th century teacher and spiritual leader, doctor of the church. The next water meditation will be with Lillian Lewis on Monday, October 3rd. She will be looking for my antlers, leaping the worlds, focusing on shaman ancestry, which I can't imagine what it'll be, but I think it'll be fun. And the next talk in this series will be October 19th, and we will have with us Rabbi Toba Spitzer, who has written a wonderful book called God is Here, Reimagining the Divine. So we will be turning to the Jewish tradition of feminist rabbi, God is Here, Reimagining the Divine. So please feel free to join us for all of these programs. Our programs are free and open to everyone. We are very thankful to those who can and do donate. And for those who cannot or do not donate, you are equally welcome, because at Water, we try to socialize resources. We believe that together, if we share, among us, there's enough. If we share, among us, there's enough. And for almost 40 years, we've been able to do our work under these conditions, and it is because of the generosity of those who have resources and the participation of all of us that we're able to do it. So thank you, and remember, among us, there's enough. So thank you again for being together. Special thanks to Ofelia, to Shannon, to Cherie, to all of you, and what a wonderful opportunity to celebrate not only a book, but a woman, and to continue now the conversation in a more informal way. So the floor is open. Those who have to leave, please go with our blessings, but those who can stay, please stay for continued discussion. The floor is open, and please use the raise hands button again so that we can hear from a number of people. Goodbye to those who have to leave. Hasta pronto. The floor is open. For those who would like to stay on, the floor is open. Who will be next? Okay, go ahead. Evangeline, great to have you.
So sorry that I missed the first part. I was at a meeting, but what a joy to get a glimpse of all those who are here, and lovely to see Ofelia and Shannon and among the others. Thank you, and Yeah, I'll wait to hear from the others.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Ofelia, I had one question that I wanted to raise. I actually have 7 questions here, but I'm just going to raise one, not to be hoggish about the thing. But I wonder if you could tell us about a little more about your current work with families and this situation in Cuba of trying to open the society to some new understandings of family life and how you, as a Christian theologian, have participated in this process. Could you say a little bit more about that? Ah, good. You have the publication.
This has been the first one that
we have it in the office. Yeah.
Yeah. See, the first one that we publish. Families of love and inclusion. ¿Se ve ahí? Sí. Families of love and inclusion. We send to all the churches. We send to the government too. In a way that we could say that for the referendum that will be 25th of September, we need to tell the people that even in the Bible, this is what we said, in the Bible is there. It was not only one family, there were many families, many families, and not only one family. This means there were a lot of, and then we used Bible studies in a way that the people could see family amor and inclusion. This has been very important for the interpretation of family today in Cuba. Pásame el otro que está ahí en la caja. The second booklets that we published recently, that was very welcome by the churches, is Valores del Reinado de Dios. Valores del Reinado de Dios. Valores del Reinado de Dios. Y también está toda la descripción de los distintos temas sobre las familias en el Reinado de Dios. Esas fueron las 2 últimas publications that we did, and they were very welcome. The question is that for the most conservative churches in Cuba, it has been only one family. Papá, mamá, nene. Papá, mamá, nene. Y eso no es true. This is not true. Their grandmothers with the children taking care of that. It's to say for the most conservative church, it has to be mamá, papá, nene. No, it's not even biblical. It's not biblical at all. It's not biblical. Hay series of families, incluso the home that Jesus visited most in the New Testament was 3 solteros, unmarried, Marta, María, y Lázaro. Marta, María, y Lázaro. And they formed a family. Marta, María, y Lázaro. There were no children there, but it was a family. And Jesus, it was the favorite home that he visited all the time. Marta, María, and Lázaro. It means sometimes the most conservative churches, they don't understand the message from the Bible. That is so important for us. And this is what I'm trying to really to teach the churches, to teach the different families in Cuba, that we need to really to accept the reality that was in the family. Even in the second booklet, we presented two men with 2 children. Now in Cuba, there are many parents that are taking care of their children. And it's not only mama, papa, and me, two fathers taking care of their children. It means this is what we try as much as we could. It's not easy, but we are trying to really to teach the biblical concerns of all this. And it has been accepted for many churches now in Cuba. We hope
Right.
the referendum is going to be 25th of September. We hope so.
Thank you. We'll keep an eye on it. Great work. Thank you. Who else would
Yeah.
like to make a comment? I don't want to prolong things here, but I want you to have an opportunity if you'd like to make a comment. Anyone before I close our session? Maybe, Ofelia, you could say just a word about how you imagine, given the realities of Cuba and the US, how you would imagine we might collaborate as people who live 90 miles away from each other and might as well be on the moon in terms of our ability to live together as common citizens of the world. How can we? What are some things? How are things so that we really have a sense? Because some of us.
We're very grateful to the churches and ecumenical organizations, not only churches, in the States that has been sending medicines, medicaments, because we don't have too many medicaments, we don't have too many food, and then the question is that really the embargo of Ortega affected very much the country, the economy of the country. But there are many groups in the United States that understood that and are sending medicaments, food, milk for the children, and so on. Then we are very grateful for that. We have hope that Biden could understand, the President Biden could understand that, but no, he didn't understand that. And this for us, it was so painful because we have hope that with his promises, the situation will be better, in our relationship between the two countries. But still, it's not much better now. Pray for that, and support the help that many people are sending to Cuba now, to support the children, to support the women, to support the society. Now, we hope so. God bless you.
Another question I have has to do with the question of theology in Latin America and how you see the impact of the work of women, your own work, of course, but of others as well. Some were mentioned, particularly Ivone Gebara, Elsa Thomas. We could name many more, but I wonder if you see any changes in male Latin American liberation theologians, especially. Are things more open? Are they beginning to take more seriously the questions that you and other women have been raising?
Oh, yes, not very much indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Not very much
That's
indeed.
what I thought, yeah.
Not very much indeed. Now, when we hear Ivone Guevara, Elsa Tamis, many other leaders in Latin America, it's not easy for them. It's not easy for them because many of them now, they are not teaching in the theological institution. They're out of the theological institution. They don't like the theology. And then we need to struggle a lot to be included in the teaching. No, it's not easy at all, I would say. And they are having many difficulties. And we hope that next year we could say a meeting in Latin America to discuss this issue with men and women, leaders of both women and men, next to say, what happened? What happened with our women? What happened with the story that they teach you so many years? What happened? But really, they don't trust them now very much. I don't know what happened in other countries, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, they don't trust them very much. So then we need to really to face this issue very seriously. Thank you.
That was my intuition, but I take it very seriously when you tell me. Anybody else have a question? I have a slew of questions, but other people who might want to raise something or make a comment, please feel free. If not, if you permit me one more, Ofelia, podríamos tomar mate o lo que sea y hablar un rato. I wonder what advice you would have for those of us who come from denominations that are still very unwelcoming of women. And I ask this, as you know, as a Catholic, since so many of us Catholics have moved on from the institutional church. Other than to critique it, we really don't have much relationship to it. We're building based communities and other forms of church. But do you have any advice? Do you have any reflections over your long career working on women's issues in a very particular way, both in Europe and in Cuba, and you observe this around the world? Do you have advice for us? Do you have any wisdom that comes from that, especially for those of us, I repeat, from denominations where women have virtually no power?
Very difficult for the Catholic women. Now, if you read the last issue, the last declaration of the bishops of the Roman Catholic Church in Cuba, they are against the family code. They are against any possibility of have marriages from people the same sexual orientation, or the different sexual orientation, sorry. The document, the document is really so painful. I read against and against and against and against. I said, my goodness, they are not taking in consideration the plurality of the Cuban families of today. There is a great plurality of Cuban families today. Al mismo tiempo, they are asking this plurality of Cuban families to have the rights to be a Cuban family, maybe a different one to the Cuban family. You know that. I always mention you and Dan. Sorry for that. Your beautiful daughter. Always I mention that. Your family. Always I mention in my sermons, your family. Because there is no one only family. If you look at the Bible, it's a plurality of families in the Bible. Plurality is incredible. Plurality of families in the Bible. And this is what we are trying to teach the churches, the ecumenical organization, but we cannot reach the Roman Catholic Church. Even that we have very good friends from the Roman Catholic Church. Last Saturday, we have a meeting and I invited several lay people from the Roman Catholic Church. I asked them, don't look for permission, just come. Just come. Just come, we want to hear you. It's easy, and it was a wonderful meeting, and they participated a lot. Then we have, for one side, the bishop from the Roman Catholic Church. For other sides, the most conservative churches, and now it formed the Alliance Evangelica, that oppose any changes in the society, any changes in the churches, any change at all in women, even to ordain women. Still, there are many that they want to ordain women. Can you imagine? O sea que es what I want to tell you, that it's not easy for us, but we are here, and we need really to struggle for all this. This is our country. We need to continue working and really try to find. I suppose that in Latin America is similar circumstances, but still we need to hear first the Cuban women from Latin America, Marta Palma, Deborah, and others. God bless you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you've just described what I have long referred to as theological pornography. Yes. Theological pornography, because these kinds of documents do three things that pornography does. They objectify persons, persons. They trivialize sexuality. They focus so much on it. They trivialize the whole idea of sexuality, and they lead to violence. And this is just what pornography does in its general secular way, and this is what theological pornography does. And it is something that I personally try to avoid reading, but it is rather common, and it is the violent part of it that keeps us, those of us from traditions where women do not have equal access. What keeps us doing the work is, in fact, to prevent that violence. So we take your model and your leadership and your experience very seriously in helping us to stay at that work, to prevent the violence. It really is a terrible problem. So, okay, last call for questions and comments. Anybody else before we say goodbye? Yes, please go ahead, Ann. One last one here. That's okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to thank Ofelia for her comments today. I'm a Presbyterian, and I'm a member of the Cuba Partners Network, and I've made 3 trips. I've made 3 trips to Cuba, and I met Ofelia in Puerto Rico, where my father was born. And I sit on the Cuba Advocacy Committee, and we meet monthly, and we want to change things in Washington so that things will get better in Cuba. But we Presbyterians I think that we lack courage. In my opinion, we lack courage. And we need to be inspired by our faith more than we are. Although we are so conscientious, and we want it to be so much better, but we must learn how to be truly faithful, to be truly engaged, and that is not what we don't seem to get that message, although we want to, And I am impatient, and I have to be rather silent when we have meetings, because I am not doing things. I don't want to just depend on our bureaucracy. I want us to depend on the teachings of Jesus and go forward. So I appreciate all that Ofelia does in Cuba and has, and what a leader she is. And I believe that in this country, we lack leaders everywhere, in every denomination. I can't speak for every denomination, but certainly in the executive boardrooms, in the places of power, in the governments. Exactly. And thank goodness we have J. Herbert Nelson leading us in the Presbyterian Church. But we women suffer from this lack of leadership by men. So I thank you very much for my friend Chess Campbell, who connected me with your group, and that I could be here today. And I wish I could be here more often.
Well, you're always welcome. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Ann. Great to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Thank you.
There are many leaders around this circle today, I'm happy to say. And as we conclude our time with you, Ofelia, you are one of our great leaders. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for being part of this. And we look forward to doing it again. I think it must be time for a water trip to Cuba. I think
Yeah.
we have to give some
Yes.
serious thought to this.
Yes.
Shannon's
Yes.
smiling. Cherie's in. I'm sure we could put together a good group, and we'll keep an eye on this in terms of how things open up as they open up, if they open up, to be able to have another one of those sessions like we had for celebrating your dissertation, Ofelia. It was a marvelous time, and I think, as you point out, so many Cuban women empowered by your work. That was really, to me, the highlight. So, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you,
Please,
Mary,
go ahead.
for bringing us this program today. It's certainly broadening and heartening.
Great. And do you want to just introduce yourself so people know who you are?
Rita Mary Cote from Niagara Falls, near Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Great.
And Adrian Corti from the same place.
And we've been to Cuba several times, so we have a sense of the challenges and just the inroads that are so difficult to make in a country that doesn't have the support that we have and the resources. So you've done marvelous work. And thank you to all of you.
And a tip of the hat to the Canadians who show us the way in this, because many of us people have gone through Canada from the US to get there, but you have been exemplary in your solidarity work and in your international ways. So thank you to our Canadian friends who others were present, by the way, today. Are we finished? I think it's hard to say goodbye because we don't have many of these opportunities, but it reminds me that we must create more of them. So we at Water will do our part. And for now, Ofelia, mil gracias, besos, abrazos, saludos a todos en Matanzas.
Gracias.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for being here.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Hasta la próxima, que sea pronto.
Bueno, gracias.